Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe. And before I get started, I just want to say this. If you are struggling right now, you are not alone. Please don't suffer in silence. So my guest today is Heidi R. After 15 years of running hard through alcohol, meth, crime, broken relationships, and losing her children, she has been sober since April 6, 2012. She found recovery by fully surrendering, working the steps, rebuilding her family, and creating a Christ-centered life with her husband. On this show, we share real stories of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. Hi, Heidi. How are you doing?
Hi, good morning. I'm doing good.
Good. Well, thank you so much for your willingness to share your story. Now, I know we both grew up in New Jersey, and you were in South Jersey, and I was in Central Jersey, Hightstown, East Windsor. Go
Yep.
Rams. Anyway, so what was it like growing up, Heidi?
Now that I'm healing, I have healed. I look back at my childhood and I had a wonderful childhood. I was raised by my stepfather. It's the only father I ever knew. He was a police officer and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Now she struggled with mental illness and alcoholism, but as a child, my household was, I could see all the good parts of it. It was exciting. All the kids in the neighborhood always came to my house. My mom had three children in 4 years. So we were all real close in age. So everybody came to our house to hang out, sleepovers, and it was just a lot of fun. But through my mom's illness, that kind of, as I became a teenager, I realized there was something different about my mom. Then and in my own addiction, I could only see the bad parts of my childhood. But today I could talk about how wonderful it was to grow up in my house. It was exciting, a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a quote. Can't remember who said it. It was one in recovery, but it was when I started healing and worked the steps, I got a new childhood.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's really cool. So, do you remember the first time you felt the effects of alcohol or drugs?
Well, so for myself, I'll tell you, I grew up in the 70s. So I was a child in the 70s. So back then it was like my parents drank, they partied, they were social. So we used to drink with our parents. We would drink out of their drinks. And I remember this one time I was like 5 years old and we grew up on the Jersey Shore. We were down there every summer. So my grandpop and Uncle Joe used to babysit us children while my mom and my grandmom and my Aunt Faye would go shopping. And we used to belly up to the bar at my Uncle Joe's house. And he would give us these little thimbles to drink shots out of. And I remember drinking Jack Daniels. I liked the label. And the bottle was square. So I thought it was different. So I would feel that going down. And I thought, wow, that felt good. And I got really excited and happy. I just remember that young, that resonated with me, that even though it burned and hurt a little bit, but it made me feel really good in the end, and that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, that's the old thimbles. For us 70s kids, that was a normal thing.
It was that was our shot class. That was my first shot class.
It really was, yeah. And I know you had mentioned your mom, having alcohol, or at least alcoholism and mental illness. How did that affect you growing up? Like,
as a child, I thought it was normal. My mom, I just thought she was sick. So I remember when I was like even around 4 years old, my sister was born in 1970 and I was born in 66. And I remember changing her diapers and giving her a bath and brushing her hair, all because my mom was sick. So to me, it was just a normal thing. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I also remember in the wintertime standing on a chair at the stove because we didn't have microwaves back then and making oatmeal and with a wooden spoon and stirring it in a pan. So I remember, so I don't know how old I was, but I was too short to be at a stove, so I had to stand on a chair to do it. So my dad worked a lot of hours, like he was a police officer, and during the winter he also had a snow plowing / landscaping business, landscaping in the spring and summer, and in the winter he would snow plow. So he was never home. So I fed the kids, my brother and sister. So I just remember it was just normal. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. She was sick, so I had to take care of everybody. That's all it was to me.
Well, so you kind of became kind of motherly as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, but I didn't know that's what it was. I just, did it. I just took care of it.
Did so as you age, when did you notice it as you got older in your childhood that maybe this wasn't the way it was supposed to be?
Yes, when I was about 14, 15 or early teens, I'd go to my friend's house and their moms were making dinner and their moms weren't drinking and they didn't smell like booze and some of them went to work and they just seemed different. And then I just realized that there was something wrong with my mom. And then my mom started acting. I started noticing her behavior where she would run around the house and she would recite Bible verses. She was convinced that my dad was possessed. It was just like psychosis. And I kept saying to my dad, I think something's wrong with mom. I think she's crazy. And he just would yell, there's nothing wrong with your mother. Nothing wrong with your mother. Don't ever talk like that about her. So everything was just so, don't tell the children anything. Growing up, when my mom was sick, we would go to our aunts and uncles and grandparents. Sometimes we were separated. Sometimes us children stayed together. But what I understand today was that when she had an episode, we were sent away, and we just thought we were visiting. But I know that there was a cycle there now. As an adult, I understand why they did that. But I didn't know any different until I started getting, when you're a teenager, I started to rebel. I started having my own ideas about things. So that's where I was until that tragic day, which I know we're getting up to that point, where my mom had a total meltdown and shot our father and then came after us children with a gun. And she didn't hurt us. I really believe there was some divine intervention there, that God was involved in that. And growing up, I didn't know who God was. I knew there was a God, but I didn't think he cared too much about our family or we weren't good enough because my mom was very, I think she lost her faith somewhere when our real dad died. And my stepfather, he was an atheist and he flat out was, there's no such thing as God. So we didn't really talk about it.
Yeah, I can imagine too, if your mom's in some of her episodes was quoting Bible verses and stuff like that, it probably even further kind of I would think convinced like, no, there is, there is no God. Why, why would God do this?
Yeah. Why was he doing this? And, why are other families so happy and my family is different than everybody else's? It just started making me questioning that if things were going to go well in my life, I was going to have to be in charge of my own life. And I think I got a lot of that from my stepdad, Henry. He was like, there is no God. You make things happen. It's you are responsible for where you go in life. And you don't depend on anybody. I think I adopted an attitude like that somewhere from him.
So I can't even imagine that type of tragedy that your mom your mom shot your dad. And I mean,
Yeah, it was pretty scary at the time. I mean, again, I've been through the steps many times, lots of prayers, lots of healing, lots of helping other people, that I could talk about it and say, yeah, it was a frightening time, but that horrendous moment has made me who I am today. So I, I can't ever say, oh, I wish that never happened. I just come to a point in my life that everything made me the woman I am today. And I always question, I say things like, how does a woman like me become a woman like me? Because where that addiction, after my mom shot my dad, I started getting high and drinking, and it just went on. And I just became a different type of person, angry, uh, I'll hurt you before you hurt me kind of thing. Got involved in a lot of crime. My father being a police officer, that's always a fun thing. The children turn out to be criminals. You see it on TV all the time. It's a true story. Or pastors' children are usually, sometimes they don't behave themselves either, you know?
I have my brother was a police officer, and not the same as having your father, of course, but part of that's part of my story of I used him to get out of so much trouble. I
Oh, yeah.
was I had it all. Would it help if I told you my brother was a cop? Was like my
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah. It got to a point where he was like, "Do not mention my name again."
Yeah,
And
I
it
would mention
really.
my dad's name all the time, and when I got caught and they were like, "Whose daughter are you?" and they would either smile or just have shock. So a lot of I'll tell you what, I didn't really pay a lot of consequences until I got sober. Like I didn't understand what they were. I just no matter what I got caught doing, it was just like I walked out all the time, swept under the carpet.
I remember when I moved to Tennessee, and I was in my mid 20s, I guess, and the first DUI I got, it was the first time I ever got a DUI. I mean, I got out of
Mhm.
it wasn't the first time I was pulled over drunk. It was the first time I got a
Right.
DUI, and I remember the cop. I said, you pulled the line. Would it help if I told you my brother was a cop? And I remember him saying, even as drunk as I was, he said, "I bet he's proud." And I was like, "Wow,"
Wow. Yes. Mhm.
And anyway, that I digress. I digress. So I can imagine after that's happening, now you're coping, right? And
Mhm.
with and living like a totally different lifestyle.
Mhm.
So how did your drinking and drug use progress in that at that
Well,
time?
so for that whole teenage years, I was in and out of like my mom was in jail for a while, and then I lived with my dad and his soon to be new wife, and it was just I was rebellious, ran away, did all that stuff, and I just got out of control. And in it, they would send me to rehabs. I'd go to rehabs, dry out for 30 days, and then come home, or 42. It was 28 days for alcohol. If you did drugs, it was 42 days back then. And I'd stay for 42 days, come out, and I'd use again. And I'd go back and forth, back and forth. And I was on a roller coaster like that until I was 18, found myself pregnant, and then getting married to someone I met in rehab. And it was, I had my first child. So, but by the time I was 19, like I started questioning them. I wasn't doing hard drugs or drinking anymore, and I wasn't going to the program. I just kind of was dry, and I was just smoking a little weed. And I remember watching my daughter out in the backyard of my mother's house, and she was a little toddler just learning how to walk. And I thought, if I don't do something about with my life, what's going to happen to her? So at 20, I started going back to a 12-step program, and I started going regularly, and I stayed sober for 10 years. Didn't really work the steps, didn't really find God. I was a two-stepper, like first step, yep, it's a hot mess, and 12, right? Because I could drive people around, set up meetings. So I did that kind of service work. And I just didn't do the middle steps because they didn't apply to me. I didn't think I was that bad. So for 10 years, I was a dry alcoholic, and I didn't change, and I was angry a lot, and it was always somebody else's fault. And I even managed to get married again somewhere in there and had a son. And to outside appearances, I had a little house. I was 26, bought my first house, and I had a little white picket fence, lots of books everywhere, 12-step self-help books. If you came over, you'd think, wow, this girl's got her stuff together. And she didn't. I was a faker. That's what I did for 10 years in the program until it didn't work anymore.
Well, it's funny because you had said you grow or you go. So you
grow
went.
or you go. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So you know what? A lot of life stuff started happening. Like I was getting ready to go through another divorce. My father, who I've known all my life, was dying. I was having problems with my stepmother. And it was like all life happening. And since I didn't do any of that middle steps for, like didn't clean up the inside, didn't depend on a higher power. So I didn't know how to deal with any of that stuff. Oh, and my so-called sponsor, I caught her embezzling money, in a little halfway house, non-profit. And it was like, I had all this stuff. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I went, and it wasn't long after that I started drinking again, which started as I was 30. So 30 to 45, I was hitting it hard because I ended up getting another job selling cars and like got into the learning in the most drinking part of my life. As heavy as I was, I made a lot of money. I was so good at my job drunk. So good. I just talked people into stuff all day long. And I didn't have anything to show for it because I was always spending it faster than I could, make it. But I did have a little crime spree in the middle there from like, I don't know
little crime spree in the middle.
I started, I went from relationship to a relationship. So I had money now, so I could afford good drugs. And I could afford drinking at all the time. I didn't have to worry about squandering or stealing. So my next husband ended up being a chemist. So you know what we did? We manufactured stuff. We set up shop and, got involved in that and distributing and going into clubs and selling stuff. And our hands were in everything. I even got into organizing bachelor parties. Like the joke was that I was the Heidi Fleiss of Philadelphia. And so I did a lot of that stuff, got people hooked on, I when I tell the story years ago, when I would tell this part of my story, I would laugh and get everyone in the room laughing. But I know now with going through the steps and all the prayers and the healing, the destruction that I did to people and the people that I harmed, like I had a motive. If I saw you, if you could make me money, you either made me money, cost me money, or you were just there for my enjoyment. So the people that I had hurt, and how later on when I really got into the program, how was I going to make amends to people that I didn't even know who they were, So that came several years later, further into my recovery, when I realized that there were some amends that need to be made to people that I didn't know. And that was another God shot. God was in my life, working in my life, all my life, and I didn't know it. He was always there, and then I met a man named Jesus somewhere along the line too. And that was where my life really changed.
Yeah. Made me think, and like you're living this big life,
Mm-hmm.
really you're living a big life and with clubs and raves and, bachelor
Raves,
parties, all that
bachelor,
stuff,
limo driving, the best of the best, the VIP. You had a separate
Yeah.
entrance to go in, and you got to look up in a VIP room down at the club, like things you actually saw in the movies. If you would think I was living like this rock and roll lifestyle, and I really did, and at the time it was a lot of fun for a while until it wasn't, always till it wasn't anymore,
That's what I was wondering, like, how were you feeling internally? Like, was there a moment in there when you were
I had such a huge hole inside of me. No matter what, I thought I came from this broken family. My mom was in jail. My mom was in a mental institution. She shot her dad. Like I carried all this guilt. Like maybe this was my fault, and I could be in a room full of people and still be alone. I was broken. I always say that I was falling faster than I could lower my standards, and it was always a dark place for me. I don't, I used to think that I was suicidal, but I wasn't. I could never, I was a coward when it came to doing something like that to myself. But I knew I didn't want to live the way I was living. I didn't understand why I couldn't be content or why I couldn't have a wonderful relationship. Like, was I not lovable? Did I not deserve it? I just really didn't like who I was. And I didn't know how not to not like me. I didn't know how to start liking me. I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. Didn't matter how much makeup I wore, what clothes I had. I couldn't get clean. Like I just felt dirty and were unworthy. Most of that whole addiction is where it took me.
What was the low point of that?
Yeah. The day that it wasn't getting arrested and losing my children in court and everything like that. It wasn't losing a job. It wasn't like I still had money. I still had a car when I got sober. It was April 6th, 2012. It was actually Good Friday. I had a good day at work, but I had a fight with the boss and I left. And I was sitting in a bar and I was drinking. And I kept drinking and I couldn't get that discontented feeling to go away. Like after a few shots, I'd start loosening up and then the night would go one way or another. It'd either be great or it would be completely rage. It was one or the other. And I couldn't even get there. And there was a mayor sitting next to me talking to me. And I just remember looking at him like, dude, why are you even here talking to me? Do you know who I am? Your career just sitting here next to the type of person I am could be over. And I just remember wanting to get in my car and drive away, and I never did that. And it was like I had some intervention. I just was sinking. I felt so hopeless. I don't know how else to put the words in it, but I had a job. I had a car. I had stuff, but I had felt so broken. There was a point where I was just so broken inside that I felt so hopeless that I ended up, instead of getting in my car, I went across the street where the bar was. There was houses across the street and one of my friends lived in it. And I went over and knocked on her door and she goes, "Oh, you don't look so good, Heidi." And I was like, I don't feel so good. And she goes, "Why don't you go lay down?" And I had a conversation with God at that moment. And I just ended up on my knees and I just said, "God, I can't live like this anymore." And it was like this, my whole life just came in like it was like flashcards in my head, like all the things that I've done, all the pain I had been carrying was just, I couldn't get away. The drink just didn't keep it down anymore. And it was coming up and I couldn't stop it. And I believe that was when you're broken just in the right amount of pieces, you get that crossroads, you either go on to the bitter end or you accept spiritual help. And I was on my knees praying to a God I did not know. And he answered. He answered.
I truly believe that, God, as I understand God, it works with empty vessels. We need to be emptied. It's like that filling up of the cup,
Yeah.
We have to be emptied until we can be filled, because I tried to fill that void with, like you did, I didn't have quite the lifestyle. I'm a little jealous of that, I'm just gonna say, but but I mean, I think that's something we have in common, is trying to fill that void, that there is no drinking, no drugs, no, it tells us, no human power can do it.
Right. You're right. No human power. I love my children. And, my second husband took them from me and he had every right to do that. I ended up getting them all back. And made amends to that man, and everything turned out great in the end. But it was years and years later that all happened. But yeah, when God came in, yeah, I was empty and broken in just the right amount of pieces. And now he started putting me back together, rearranging it and putting me back together. But it was weird when I started to go to that to a I know we don't say where we went, but it was a 12-step program. And I saw someone on Facebook. It was my very first boyfriend from high school. He says, "Oh, I've been sober 100 days." And I went, "Oh my gosh, what a loser." And then I sent him a message and said, "Oh my God, I can't stop drinking. I need help." And he took me to my first meeting. And I'll tell you, I never had God lifted the obsession for any jonesing for any alcohol or drugs immediately. I never had a craving. And still to this day, I've never had craving. Almost 14 years later, took it away. Hit the ground running in the program, got a sponsor, a home group, started doing the steps. And my life blew up when I put down that bottle. Like, oh, my first 90 days was insane. Meltdowns, freaking out. Like I couldn't control myself. And they kept saying, "Keep coming back." Keep coming back.
I want to choke you. Choke you when you say it. Keep coming back. I don't want to come back.
Yeah, I was a disruptive newcomer. I moved the chairs around. I was up and down, up and down. I kept getting coffee, going to the bathroom. And my sponsor said, "If you stop drinking so much coffee like it's whiskey, why don't you try sipping it instead of slamming it down?" So
I mean, it sounds like total surrender, is what that was.
I think I think he rendered me helpless. Like because I fought tooth and nail all the way, all the way. But I think God rendered me helpless. Like when somebody's drowning, sometimes they have to render that drowning person completely helpless because they'll just pull them down. Well, I guess God's mightier than that. You're done. When you're done, you're done.
So, what was that early sobriety? I know it's kind of chaotic, but what are some of the things you did to kind of keep gaining traction?
So the first 30 days, like I racked up speeding tickets. Now I drove drunk everywhere and never got pulled over. And when I did, they just sent me home. But now that I'm sober, I guess they thought I should know better. So I sped going to meetings and everything like that. And they would just write these tickets over and over and over again. No, it's the other dog.
Oh, okay.
They would write me tickets for careless driving and speeding, reckless driving. So I got like thousands of dollars worth of tickets. I almost lost my license, and I just paid those fines and accepted the points. Second month, because I was still same job, I didn't know how to drive sober. So I kept smashing up company cars, 4 of them, and 2 of them I totaled. And the owner was like, "Are you drinking?" And I said, "No." And I'd start crying. I'm like, I don't know how to act without booze. I can't drive. I don't know how to talk to people. So he said, for every accident on the car and on auto, when you work for an auto dealer, it's $1,500 deductible if it's your fault. So I had 4 faults. It was $6,000 I owed the owner by 60 days. So he said, "If you stay sober, I'll waive this. But if you relapse, I will collect every cent out of you." So I had to show him my chips every month. Every time I got a chip, I had to send him a picture of it, or bring it to his office, one or the other. But I never drank. So he forgave that bill. 90 days, my house burnt down. Now my mom was out of jail, and I was living with her in our old family home. And, she got caught in the fire, and she was burned like 25% of her body. They had to helivac her out. That was the day I got my 90-day chip. And I was like, oh my gosh, all this stuff's happened to me. But they kept saying, "Heidi, you don't ever have to drink. Just keep coming to the meetings." So that's all I did was I just kept going to the meetings. Oh, my life's falling apart. But they said you don't have to drink. So I didn't realize that if I don't pick up the first drink, I won't get drunk. So I didn't pick up the first drink. That was amazing. Like I couldn't believe that the first drink, if I don't pick that first drink up, I won't get drunk. So I just kept not picking up the first drink. Lots of coffee, but no alcohol.
Well, and that, how does that happen? You know?
Yeah. It happens. It's the 12 steps, it's the support of the fellowship, and people just gathering around you, like walking, like they went through all this with me. Like my mom lived and she ended up dying when I was 9 months sober, and they showed up for me then too. It was like, I just, they told me things like this: Heidi, you got sober just in time to handle this stuff. And that's where like a lot of that healing with my mom, when she ended up catching the flu and her lungs were so badly damaged from the fire that they put her on hospice, and I moved into the hospital for 4 days, and I sat by her side and I was able to forgive her and make amends to her. And my prayer was, I just always wanted my mother to be um, a mother, like the mother I needed. So this was probably one of the best things that God ever gave me. Was when my mom was dying, I had crawled into bed with her in the hospital. She couldn't talk. She put her arms around me and she held me until I fell asleep and she slipped away. It was the biggest gift I could have ever asked for. And then God revealed to me that he created me to care for her, not the other way around. And when I was able to see that, my whole childhood, I got a new childhood from that moment on. It was it just made sense. I was made to take care of her. And I was okay with that. It just made sense to everything I did as a child, taking care of my siblings, because I thought it was normal, because that's how God made me. He made me to care for other people. And I think that's why I'm working in a detox and inpatient facility. It took me many years to find my way to that job. But I do real well there because I just go in there and I love people, and that's it. I just love them.
And that's a huge thing, Heidi, because man, what a what an unbelievable realization. You
Mm-hmm.
know that we don't know why we're here, and and why things are happening. My sponsor, he always tells me. He said, Joe, he said, things are not happening to you. Things are just happening.
Yeah.
You
Or
know.
they're happening for you. Like everything I went through was
Yeah.
it's just another thing that God transformed me into a woman that he wanted me to be. Like I had this wonderful manipulation skills that was great when I talked people into buying cars that they didn't want or into payments that they couldn't afford. But I would take some kind of character and I would turn it in for the selfish part of me, right? But when I got into recovery and I started turning my will over to God and building this wonderful relationship, and it's just not praying and meditation, it is fellowshipping. I go out in my backyard and we walk around the yard talking about the chickens he's given me to take care of, like we have conversations. And I mean, most people, I would think back in the day, I would think these people are crazy talking to God like that. You can't have conversations with the Almighty. But yes, you can. Yes, you can. And he introduced me to Jesus too, because I have to tell you, at 8 years sober, I hit a wall in my recovery. And I couldn't quite, like, I was doing all the right things and I was praying and I had a good relationship, but I couldn't get any closer to him. And I found myself at another fellowship at church, and this song came on, and my head was saying, "Get out of there! You don't need Jesus. You don't need. Why are you even in church? You don't even need him. You're doing just fine without him." And I said another little prayer. I was like, Jesus, if you're really there, can you just quiet this in my head? And then all of a sudden, my heart started beating, and I got sweaty and cold all at the same time. And this song called "The Father's House" by Corey Asbury came on, and my heart felt like it just exploded. And whatever chains I had on there, and I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal savior, and my whole life changed. And then it's thus started another journey of getting closer, seeking God, going to Bible college, studying to be a chaplain. You know, somebody I was 58 years old. All of a sudden, I'm going to go to school again, Bible college. I was like, this is crazy. I barely got out of 8th grade, you know? And it was, that was another, it's just been one journey after another. Grower
Yeah.
you go. You grow.
You said the word that is seek, continuing to seek.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the lessons I've learned this year or in this last year. I need to keep seeking, because if you stop, it's quickly I can go back to who and what I was, and I always think, like, I am only an arm length away from a drink. I am never
Yes.
that far, and I don't kid myself of anything else.
Yeah. Well, the clients are funny. They're like, well, I only have 3 days and you have so many years. And I'm like, no, I might have over 13 years away from my last drink, but I'm always an arm's length away from my next. And then I'd say, but wait a second. What time did you wake up this morning? Because we can only stay sober one day at a time. And they'll say, well, I was up at 6. I said, well, I was up at 10. So guess what? You're sober longer than I am today. You have more hours into the day sober than I do. And their eyes would light up and say, oh, yeah, yeah. So take your 3 days and rock that, because you've been sober more hours than I have been today. You're awake. Because I used to tell them, if you're having a bad day and you're worried about using, go to bed and go to sleep. You got another day in. The day's over. You get to start over tomorrow and it'll be a new day. But yeah, I always like that. I didn't make that up. Somebody told me that early in recovery. If you got up before me, I think it was this guy, Joe McHugh or something. He was sober 100 years. He was just a real old timer, long time old timer, and he used to say, if you got up before I did, you've been sober longer than me. And I thought, wow, that's cool.
Absolutely. I had one of those who always just said the same thing, same type of thing. You just say, if you didn't drink today, you're tied for first place.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to use that one next time. Yeah, I like that.
You and I know part of your backstory. I know you took your grandkids in for a couple of years.
Yeah, that was that, in that first year, after my mom passed away, my daughter started using, because both my kids went into recovery before I did. And my son still has more time than me. My son celebrated 15 years in December. My daughter celebrated 9 in October, but there was a period where she was using. And I was in New Jersey. She's out here in Arizona. She's like, Mom, I need to reinvent myself. And I thought, I'm getting on a plane. And I went and picked up those children and I brought them back to Jersey, and I kept them for like 2 years. And even me and my brother and I had talked about, if she doesn't sober up, we were going to adopt those children. But it didn't turn out that way, but we were making a plan B. But that's only because of recovery that, for someone like me who used and lost her children, now, in recovery, I was like, nope, I am showing up for my family, and I'm going to take those children and keep them until my daughter gets her stuff together. And that's what happened.
Wow. That's pretty, and that had to be pretty healing too for you.
Yeah, it was, because at my job, I was a big finance manager, and I had people underneath me that I supervised. And I went in and said, hey, I'm going to have to quit my job. I have these little babies. I can't work 12 hours. So they created a clerk's job for me where I got paid like $10 an hour. This was in 2013. And I punched a time clock, and all those people that I supervised now came and dumped stuff on my desk and told me what to do. And that was a humbling moment. And I was very proud to do it. I was very honored to be able to switch roles like that, instead of letting the ego, getting the best of me. I didn't. I was just very grateful that I was able to keep my grandkids and somehow pay those bills at $10 an hour. I don't know how I did it, but I did it,
Especially in Jersey. Woo!
Right. Yes. Yep. So,
I'm assuming you made I know you made amends to your children as when they were grown. What was that like?
It was weird. Like my daughter and I, we talked about like this is. I remember listening to her first story, and I had to hear her side of how the abandonment that she had when she needed her mom the most, and her mom wasn't there. It was almost like I could hear her pain was just like the pain I had with my mom. Stories just a little bit different. Bottom line was moms weren't there. And that that was a big deal. And when after her she shared, I went and hugged her and I told her how horrible I feel about it. Just seems like the cycle. And she goes, Mom, the cycle's broken because I'm here for my children now because I took care of them. Now she's sober. And that was the way it was, more of a living amends. The cycle's broken. She's very current and active in her children's life where I wasn't able to be and my mom wasn't. And my son, when I moved out here, now this son, I lost him. He was like 10. He came back briefly at 17, went back out of my life again. And then he was getting married. He got married and had a child. And when my daughter was back out here, my mom was passed away. My son said, why don't you come live with me, Mom? And I was like, what? Okay. So I went and lived with him for 18 months. And I went to my ex-husband's house and his wife's house, and I saw pictures of my son. And never saw him before. And I didn't know that's what he looked like when he was 12 and 14 and 15. Like I saw all these things and my heart was just so full of guilt. And I had a talk with him about that. And I said, I'm so sorry that I wasn't there. And he goes, Mom, don't do that to yourself because you're here now. And I got the gift of alcoholism and drug addiction from you. And without recovery, I wouldn't have the life that I have today. I wouldn't have been able to forgive you, Mom. And I wouldn't have you in my life today if it wasn't for all that. So don't feel that way. So the living amends is I'm there for these kids all the time. And we all have this great relationship. My husband with my ex-husband, we were just all one big happy family. And we could be all in the same room together, which is a miracle.
That's it. That's huge.
It's huge.
It's a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask about today, your life today? What is, I didn't want to mention your husband's name. I see him in the background a little bit, but I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, my husband is so wonderful. We met at in the program at a bonfire at a function, a 12-step function. And he came up and asked, he says, and I'm a lot older than him too. I like to always admit that too. I'm like 18 years older than my husband. And he'd come up and he says, oh, hi, Heidi, my name's Drew. And I'm like, oh, whatever, And then like, it took him 5 years. We met in 2017. And then July of 2021, he finally asked me out. He served on every panel. Like I was a chairperson for this. I was like so busy in service. So he was always part of my support team. He set up tables, break down tables. So I just figured, we had this celebration of life. So I was like, oh, help me move tables around. And then we just started hanging out as being friends. So this was the first healthy relationship I ever became in. So we've been together 5 years, dated for 3. We've been married for 2 already. And he's just my best friend. And he was supportive with me going to Bible college. And, I adopted his daughter, his youngest daughter. So this was a thing. I had a judge take children from me and then a judge to give me one. And that's all because of God working in my life and recovery, just surrendering. And that my life today is I have a little poultry farm out back with chickens, turkeys, and ducks. And I have 4 dogs now. And I don't even know how many cats we had. We started out with 7, then we went down to 4. And then there's a lot of strays. So there's a lot of cats outside too. So, it's just our family just keeps growing. And I have 5 grandchildren. Drew came with 2 daughters. I adopted the younger one. So my life is beautiful.
Sounds like a pretty incredible blended family.
Well, what is funny when my first 30 days, they said, Heidi, what do you think your sobriety life is going to look like? And this is what I said to them. I said, well, I'm going to get all my stuff back that I lost to all those ex-husbands. And I'm going to have a big house. I'm going to have a housekeeper and a landscaper. And this time I'll be able to afford a butler. I don't have any of that. I live in Apache Junction. I have chicken poop up to the eyeballs, and I live in a little single wide out in the desert, and it's the best life I've ever had in my life. And I work in a recovery place where I'm a resident assistant, where I take care of the clients. I take care of them. My best favorite thing to do in the door is when the doorbell rings and they're at that door, I like to answer that and welcome and say, welcome home. There's no place to go but out from here. Come on in. We're glad you're here. We've been waiting for you. That's what I tell them. We've been waiting for you, and then I just help them through it.
That's pretty powerful,
Yeah.
Pretty powerful. And you were saying earlier that you're studying, like doing biblical studies now, right? Am I right?
Yes. And I've been through like crisis count. Like it was challenging. My first semester, I couldn't handle it. Like I really only went to 8th grade. I got a GED somewhere in my years, and I couldn't do this. And I was crying one day to work going, God, I don't even know why you go talk to me into going to Bible college. I can't. How could you give me this stuff and I can't even understand any of the words in the book? This fancy stuff. I can't do this. I'm going to quit. And then everything in my car just shut down, like the radio shut off. And this loud thought came to my mind saying, this is not work, Heidi. You are seeking me. You're learning. You need to know me so you can go out and make me known. And I went, oh. And at that point, then everything changed. School became easy all of a sudden. It was just reading and studying in his word. I entered the Bible. I didn't read it. I entered it. And I entered and interacted with all the people in there, and God changed anything I asked for. He answers all my prayers. Most of the time it's not now, or you're not ready, or I have something better, but he never not answers me.
That's I love it. And so you may have kind of answered it, but I figured I'd ask anyway. How does your faith and your recovery kind of interact together in your life?
It's just a way of life now. I don't know any other life like this. It just I had to learn how to believe in something I couldn't see, and I had to believe that in an outcome that I didn't try to manipulate my outcome. I don't know how to explain it. It's just become a way of life for me. It just goes together. I just don't get me wrong. I still negotiate with God. Hey, do you need any help with that? I tossed that problem up to you a while ago. What's taking so long to sort this out? I need an answer. I do a lot of that stuff. I just don't know. He just changed something in me that I just walk that way. Like that's all I see. It's just him. I don't know how to put it into words. It's just the way I live today. He's my solution.
Yeah, I think you did put it into words, actually. I do. I really do. I think you put it. I think you did put it into words. And so, if somebody's out there listening, and maybe feeling hopeless, or maybe feeling too far gone for God, what would you say to someone that was listening? Maybe
don't ever give up. If someone like me could get so broken, and I just called out to a God that I didn't know to help me, he will do it. You just have to ask. Like God is a gentleman. He stands there waiting for you to come to him. Like he'll interact. I always picture myself as a toddler. When you're starting to walk and your parents are behind you and you're going to go bobble this way, kind of bobble you that way. Well, I believe God did that a lot to me. Like, and I always picture myself in the beginning as a toddler, terrible twos, having a tantrum. I picture God in a white button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up. This is how I picture my God. Black slacks, sitting at the kitchen table, just watching his toddler having a temper tantrum. And when I'm done with all the snot and the crying, I hop in his lap and he fixes it. But today and then I matured into the 10 to 12-year-old. Now I feel like I'm moving into the older, the young adult with God. Like I can reel myself in, but I still can't do anything without him. I need his intervention and guidance at all times. I tell everyone I have three higher powers: God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's how I work, so I need three.
That's fair enough. So is there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't?
No, I don't know. I'm very grateful that I got asked to come out to your show. Like, again, I'm just another addict, alcoholic, trying to get another day. And what do I have to do that? And that's just trust God, keep my side of the street clean, and help other people. Those three little simple things. And I think I appreciate you asking me on here. I'm really honored to be here, because I'm just another addict, just another alcoholic getting another day. I don't have anything to say.
I think you have a lot to say, and I think your story is full of hope, and it's an amazing testament to what you can go through and come out on the other side. A better person, a better human. There's an old quote that says, "If you're going through hell, keep going."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you're just living proof of what's out there waiting on someone who chooses this life.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Heidi. But I can't let you go without doing our rapid fire questions.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's been an honor. It really has. So, but are you ready, my friend? All right. We are. What is your favorite recovery slogan?
Keep coming back. Keep coming back.
What is your least favorite recovery slogan?
I don't have one. I like them all, and I use them all. I remember one when I first got sober. I was hurting, sitting in those rooms, and a bunch of newcomers. And this old timer looked around and says, "Hey, newcomers, look around. We're all your new best friends." And I thought, "Oh, all right. Well, that's the one I didn't like." But I like saying that now. Look around, guys. We're all your new best friends. I'm like, you get the look on their face. So that was the one I liked the least in the beginning. But I like all of them.
That's fair. What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
Empathy. I just know where they've come from. I know their pain.
If you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
Don't give up, Heidi. Don't give up. The miracle's going to happen.
What song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. They're all. This new song that it's really been rocking. It's called "Rise." Rise up through the hurt, that broken roots. That I'm really into them a lot. And I'm like, rise up through that pain. And that's exactly what you have to do. Don't lay there and hurt. Just get up. And that's the difference. Somebody told me sitting on the couch thinking about it and actually getting up and do it, it requires the same effort. So I started sitting on the couch and doing absolutely nothing and feeling sorry for myself requires the same effort as getting up and doing something about it. So I get up and do something about it. It's the same effort.
I like that. If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. One wish? I don't know. I don't wish for stuff anymore. I just let it happen. I can't answer that one. I really don't wish for stuff anymore because God just has so many things in store for me. I just wait to be surprised. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one.
Don't be sorry,
one.
Heidi. It's okay. What step do you love the most?
Step 2. Because if that's the glue that holds it all together. You could do 1 perfectly, you can do 12 really good, but step 2, coming to believe in a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. That's the glue. That's my favorite step, because without step 2, without having that belief, you can't work any of the rest of them effectively. Because you could sit on one forever and be miserable, sitting in that unmanageability and that powerlessness until you can't take it anymore, and then you have to drink, But the glue is step 2.
What step do you love the least?
I still don't like making amends. But I do it. I do it because I always feel better afterwards. But that's the one that I like try to justify. I'll fight that one more. The eighth and ninth step. I'll fight it a little bit more because it's really their fault. They deserved it. I'm not saying I'm sorry.
I'm nodding my head as she's saying, of course it's their fault.
That's their fault. That's the one I really buckle the most with, is the 8th and 9th step.
What is one of your favorite movies?
What is it? The Forrest Gump movie. That's my favorite movie in the whole world. I will watch that over and over again. And you know why? Because he's so innocent through the whole thing. And that Jenny, I always when I watch her in her drug addiction, and when she was standing on that ledge, I really believe I've been in those situations, and that despair that she had, and that always drives home that I could easily go back to that if I chose to, and I don't. I want to stay right here under the care and protection of my higher power, whom I choose to call God.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome home.
Yeah.
Welcome home. I've been waiting for you.
Well, Heidi, thank you so much. Very powerful.
Thank you.
Very powerful. And if this episode meant something to you, share it with one person who needs hope today. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, because it helps this message reach someone who's still struggling and doesn't know where to turn. A new episode of The Cup of Joe Show drops every Thursday at noon. You can listen anytime at thecupofjoeshow.net or on your favorite podcast apps: Podbean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." And if you're looking for daily encouragement in your recovery journey, subscribe to our friends at the Daily Ponderables. Daily inspiration delivered to your inbox every morning. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share, because someone out there wants to hear this today. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day.
It's just a laid-back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's Experience, Strength, and Hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to The Cup of Joe Show.